Hey guys, what's up? JOC back again, and the Vikings have stayed aggressive in free agency, picking up yet another wide receiver, and this time it's Tavarres King. Let's
12 seconds to go in the game. Niners lead by 4. He'll fire to the right. 60,000.
So Tavarres King is a 6'1", 192-pound, 27-year-old wide receiver from the Giants. He was drafted in 2013, but hasn't really showed anything until last year. And last year, he appeared in 8 games, catching 18 passes for 240 yards. He really showed his strength is a deep ball receiver. For those 18 receptions, 3 of them were for touchdowns. His long was 57. He had two receptions over 20, and that one was over 40. So the deep threat potential is definitely there. So I think right off the bat, as far as Vikings fans, a very good comparison for him would be kind of like a poor man's Jerome Simpson. Just strictly a deep ball receiver, not much. Anything less than 20-yard passes would be good for him. A potential for a guy that can throw it up and hope for a flag. But let's look at his scouting report based off of Bleacher Report, who did his whole scout report. So he's a 5th-round pick for the Broncos. And his strength: King has a long stride that covers lots of ground. At times, it doesn't even look like he's running, but there he is, striding past another unsuspecting safety on his way to pay dirt. He adjusts naturally to the deep ball and looks extremely smooth in making that transition from catching the football to running with it. So he's very good. He's sneaky fast. He's about average. If I looked his speed up on Madden, if that's a good case for you, and it was at 89, so it's average to below average, but his ability to still sneak past corners and safeties is pretty impressive. His weakness: he's not very good at any short passing game. He's not very good at running the short route tree, which is interesting enough. Kind of sounds a little bit similar to Cordell Patterson in that aspect. But his tools, you see his hands aren't very good. They're average to below average, and that's kind of the theme across the board. He's good at catching deep balls, but everything else, yikes. He's the potential good deep ball guy, but since it's been all this time, he's coming on his 5th year, and he hasn't been over 300 yards yet. That's a pretty big red flag. So one question remains: is Tavarres King better than Laquan Treadwell? Well, first, let's look at skill set and see for the team. Tavarres King, of course, deep ball guy. But the Vikings already have Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen, which it died off towards the end of the year, but as of about week 10, the Vikings had one of the best deep threat games in the game. Those two were catching 20-yard passes like nothing, so adding a third deep threat guy doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But looking at Laquan Treadwell, he hasn't shown it as of his career, but his skill set is more of a red zone wide receiver. A guy that will come down, make those tough catches in the red zone and score touchdowns. Again, no touchdowns in his career, so maybe I'm just blowing smoke. But with that skill set, you'd really like him to blossom instead of Tavarres King on your team, because if Kyle Rudolph gets hurt, the Vikings don't have a good red zone target. Adam Thielen is okay, but it's definitely not his strong suit, and the same can be said about Stephon Diggs, who is a little bit worse than the red zone. So you really are hoping and crossing your fingers that Laquan Treadwell can get it going and maybe have a little 5-touchdown year, maybe only 300 yards, but just something where he can prove he's good enough in the red zone. So that's what the Vikings would really like. Tavarres King is more of a Michael Floyd replacement, if anything, because that's what I see his max potential to be. He maybe could get his 18 reception for 240 yards as a Vikings number 5 receiver next year if that happens to be the case. And him and Stacy Coley would have a potential battle for the last wide receiver spot, and it'd be interesting who will win that position. I like Stacy Coley. I think he has more upside, especially since Tavarres King is 27, so maybe more of a camp body if anything, but hey, let's see what he does in camp. So here are my thoughts. Give me yours in the comments, and we'll see you guys in the next JOZ Vikings video. See you guys then.